Good morning. If you would at this time, please begin to take your seats. We have plenty of seats up front. Please don't be shy. At this time, please begin to take your seats. Thank you so much. We'll begin shortly. We'll begin in another minute. Do that right now. We're going to begin in another 10 seconds or so. If there's anyone in the audience that does need Spanish translations or any kind of translations, there are tables outside in the hallway where you can pick up a headset for that translation. So if you do need translations, please do head on outside and pick up that.
Si hay algunos padres o personas que necesitan traducción en español, pueden ir a la mesa que está blanca aquí afuera, a la izquierda, y ahí tienen unos audífonos que pueden usar para la traducción.
There's a line outside, so we're just going to begin another minute or two. You don't know if I do anything. So much. Give it another minute as we have a line outside coming in, so get started momentarily. This is a wonderful thing. We ready? Okay, we got it. Good morning. Well, let's do it better. Good morning. Yes, yes, yes. My name is Edward Owusu, and I'm the very, very proud principal here at Clarksburg High School, and welcome to Clarksburg High School. The ultimate goal, objective for any school is education, which we all know. However, we cannot learn if students don't feel safe. And that's why we're here today, to get an informational meeting. This is one of the first informational meetings that we will have here at Clarksburg, but other schools in the Montgomery County public school system in regards to this crisis. This is not a safety meeting, this is an informational meeting. So I do want to say that up front. This is an informational beginning, a start in regards to prevention and intervention. With the proliferation of fentanyl, that task, that safety task, that education task is getting harder. Substance use has taken a toll on students and staff in every building in Montgomery County Public Schools, as well as private and independent schools. It's impacting the learning environment. That's a fact. This pervasive issue is in every single high school in Montgomery County Public Schools. It does not discriminate. It doesn't care whether you are Black, white, Asian, Hispanic. It doesn't care about your gender. It doesn't matter about your age. You could be 5, 10, 15, 20. Your economic status doesn't matter either. It does not make a difference. It does not discriminate, and it affects all students. I am thrilled, though. I'm thrilled that we are beginning today, that our school system is taking a stand against this issue and working with a broad collective of community organizations that are here today and across the county. I'm not going to get into all those organizations because, as you can see, they're around the tables and there's so many to go through, but I do want to thank them. In regards to thanking folks, I do have to begin by thanking first our building services staff, because if you're sitting down, they set up every single chair. And our building services staff does work very, very hard to make sure that we are doing the right thing. And we're meeting in our cafeteria here at Clarksburg. I do want to also thank outside. You might have seen our security as well as our system principals that have been outside guiding you. And so thank you to them as well. I cannot begin to thank enough who began setting up last night our MCPS technical crew, our ITV as well. So thank you to all those individuals in the background, in the back, thank you to them. And for their flexibility, we do have the George B. Thomas Learning Academy here. Normally they're in here, but today they've been moved to different areas, so I want to thank them for their flexibility in the building. So they're getting their education right now. Again, as I mentioned, we're here to take care of our last, our least, and our littlest students, and so this is very, very important. I also have to thank individuals that are here from various organizations, our Board of Education members, and our state delegates. If any kind of dignitary is here, would you please just stand for me, please? I did mention our Board of Education, Montgomery County government agencies. Thank you. Thank you. I don't want to miss anybody, so I'll make sure I have that wait time. It's important. I want to step aside and have some of that translated as well before I go any further.
Buenos días y bienvenido al Foro Familiar sobre el Fentanilo. Estamos reunidos como comunidad para combatir el aumento de consumo de drogas conteniendo el fentanilo, que cada día se nos hace más difícil. Nuestra meta como condado escolar es cultivar un ambiente sano y seguro para que nuestros estudiantes puedan ser exitosos. El uso de sustancia por nuestros jóvenes nos prohíbe mantener a nuestras escuelas seguras para ambos estudiantes y personal. Hoy día estamos aquí para elevar este tema y unirnos como comunidad, poniendo nuestras manos a la obra para apoyar a nuestros jóvenes. Como recordatorio, tendremos servicios de traducción y los receptores están ubicados en la parte afuera de la cafetería. Gracias.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome some of our speakers to begin with. First up, I'd like to welcome to the stage Mr. Rich Maldonado, Chief Administrative Officer for Montgomery County.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming, whether you're in the audience here or you're at home virtually watching this. This is truly a family forum, a forum for all of the families of Montgomery County, in the schools, outside of the schools. I wanted to be here to make sure you knew that County Executive Mark Elrich, County Council Member Marilyn Balcom, who's right there, the entire County Council, everyone is united in working with the school system, with working with all of our partners around the county government, inside the government, outside of the government, to fight fentanyl in our communities. We are all here because we need to figure out how to stop this amongst our youth, and to recognize this is not an MCPS problem. This is not a problem that just happens in the schools. In fact, this is a problem that is happening around our country and around our community, and we need to stand united in order to stop it. And that's why we are all here today, to learn those lessons, to figure out how we stop it, and how we build a stronger community and stronger Montgomery County families. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy this very good program this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome Miss Rebecca Smodrowski, member of the Board of Education.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here today for this important program. As we've been discussing, fentanyl has become one of the most important public health topics over the last several years, and we've seen a significant increase, roughly about 78%, in youth overdoses and overdose deaths in 2022 due specifically to fentanyl. In fact, about 90% of overdoses in Maryland are due to fentanyl. Too often, counterfeit pills are taken by youth, both knowingly and unknowingly, and often have a high enough dose of fentanyl to kill without kids being aware. Fentanyl use among youth is a problem in our schools, not only because it's dangerous for those who use it, but also because it disrupts learning and the sense of health and well-being in others as well. While we know that most students don't take drugs, we all know that most of us know someone who has. It's personal to all of us. Too many of our students have died from fentanyl overdoses, and many more have overdosed and have been saved through the use of Narcan. Sorry, this is a personal issue for me too. But this is not just an MCPS problem, as Mr. Madaleno has mentioned, as Principal Owusu has said. This is a community problem, and we're all in this together. And MCPS is very proud to be working with our community partners, including Montgomery Goes Purple, Health and Human Services, the State's Attorney's Office, and the Montgomery County Police Department as well. We're strong believers in see something, say something, and save a life. So if you know of somebody who needs help, please reach out. There is an abundance of resources, and as we've said before, we are all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smodrowski. I'd like to welcome up next Dr. Patrick Murphy, Deputy Superintendent, Montgomery County Public Schools.
Well, good morning. I'm Pat Murphy, Deputy Superintendent, and I'm here this morning on behalf of our Superintendent, Dr. McKnight. I want to say thank you. Thank you. This is a community call to action this morning. And I've attended many of these events previously, but the attendance and the turnout today is phenomenal. I want to thank all of our principals who are here, building leaders. My colleague Brian Hall is here with us, and if you are an MCPS employee or a member of the executive team, if you could please wave your hands, let folks know you're out here. Thank you for being here this morning. That sends a very positive message about a community call to action. While I've spoken to many of our school leaders over the last several months about this, I want to leave you with something this morning. I know that there is a variety of concern out there among our youth. I know that people are dealing with a host of different pressures with life today. But I think the strongest asset that we can develop in our young students and young kids is decision making. Decision making is key, because while we all want the best for our kids, we won't be there at the times when important decisions need to be made. So please talk to them about those decisions. Please talk to them about those issues. Conversations and dialogue are really going to be the best strategy and remedy that we have for all of us. And I encourage you to do that so that when decisions need to be made, the right decisions are made. And we need to develop that capacity and practice. I'll echo what Ms. Somdrowski said. If you see something, if it doesn't fit, say something. You'll learn today about the tremendous resources that are here in our county, and we need to be able to take advantage of them. So thank you again for being here. Ed, thank you for hosting us, and I'll turn it over to our health administrator, a new member of our team this year, Dr. Patricia Kapunen.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you, Principal Owusu, for having us. And I also wanted to acknowledge my colleague, Stephanie Izzard. Are you here? Without whose vision and leadership, an event like this never would have happened. So thank you. I want you guys all to give her a round of applause. There she is. And I'm happy to share that she and her team are already working on what this event looks like down county. We're excited to share details of that in the near future. And then I also wanted to thank Chair and co-founder of Montgomery Goes Purple, Laura Mitchell. I know Judge Bernard, I think you're here as well too. Montgomery Goes Purple is our community coalition. So you've heard folks already talk about that. A comprehensive community approach to this public health crisis is what we need. So we are so thankful that MCPS could be part of this partnership along with our county health department, law enforcement, other agencies, and our most important treatment specialists who are with us today and who will be able to answer your questions. As Dr. Murphy said, this is a call to action. So, you know, even the second week of school, our superintendent, our deputy superintendent, our president of the Board of Education with county leaders stood up at September Recovery Month to raise awareness of this issue. We've been talking a lot about this is a problem, and now the focus of today is what can we do about it as a community. I've talked about this being a comprehensive community problem, but youth, parents, caregivers are at the absolute heart of what that looks like, and we partner with them in understanding how to walk this road together. So we have just a couple of things to share with you. And you know, what is MCPS doing? We're talking about Narcan. We're talking about emergency response. We're actively connecting schools with youth supports and programs out in our community. And we've shared some resources with you online, and we have the chance to actively engage in those resources, ask questions of our experts, especially, you know, about what is being done out in the community. This is not it. Like today, what's on the slide is not it. This is a continuing conversation, and you'll hear more. We'll engage not just at the district level, but also at the level of the individual school communities, and we are so happy that parents and youth are coming forward to be part of this conversation, especially with regards to what does that look like for a particular school community. So these are some of the things, and the focus of what we're doing today is informational. You have many experts to ask your questions and to start this dialogue as we walk this road together. And you guys have seen a lot of data. All the data looks the same. These data are police department data that show increases in overdoses and fatal overdoses in youth in our county when you compare 2021 to 2022. But really, we have seen this trend nationally since 2019. An increase in overdoses, especially opioid-related overdoses driven by illicit fentanyl, which is increasingly available in the community to our youth, including via social media. So the availability of this powerful illicit drug is what is driving these incidents. When you look at it, when you pan back, overdoses in Montgomery County appear to be stable, but when you look at the youth, this is a problem. Even when we look at global trends in substance use, they may not look like they are increasing, but because of the potency and danger of illicit fentanyl, critical incidents, medical emergencies, even deaths due to opioid-driven overdoses are increasing. So that is the most important thing to know about the data. This is not just Montgomery County. This is a national trend we've been seeing since 2019, but something that really seems to be accelerating in our recent history. So what can parents do to help? I'm starting with these questions so you can start thinking about, what do we want to ask our panel? Getting smart, that's why we're here today, right? Learning about the problem and learning specifically, how do we talk to our kids about the risks? I'm a pediatrician and a teen health specialist by training, and your voice really, really matters. I'm also the parent of a teenager, I'm an MCPS parent, and some days I feel like there's a mama-shaped hole in my kid's eardrum, but I will tell you from talking to many teenagers that your voice, what you say, the expectations you set, the very idea that they can come to you and that's okay, even when it's hard and scary, is just so powerful. So know the facts, share the expectations, and learn with us about how to have these conversations. It's not intuitive. It's not intuitive for healthcare professionals, what language to use, how to open a conversation, how to leave that door wide open. Because, it's not easy to talk to teenagers. If it was, I wouldn't have a job. This is hard to talk about, substance use, mental health issues, but talking about not just substance use, mental health, trauma, all these things that we are carrying with us and carrying more together coming out of the pandemic. We have to start having these conversations, and you're not in it alone. We're here for you today and in the future. So there's some great information that we're sharing about non-stigmatizing language, because sometimes the things that we say are unintentionally blocking the road or making it more difficult for people to come forward about something that might be frightening and shameful. And then absolutely learn about naloxone. I mean, this is not the only thing we're helping you with today, but we do ask parents to think about medication safety in their home. Think about how to secure medications, how to dispose of unneeded medications, including opioids. There are drop boxes. You can always turn them in to retail pharmacies. And then learn about Narcan and decide, is this something that I need in my home? Would I, how do I use it? You don't have to be a medical professional to use it. You don't have to be a medical professional to save a life. And overdoses are not happening just in schools. Most of them are actually happening out in the community, so everybody needs to partner to save lives together. All right. So what I don't speak about on this slide is what can youth do to help. And this is something that I feel very passionate about, that youth are part of the solution. You help us understand how you're experiencing things, and you raise your voices about what we need to do to help, right? You become part of that conversation. And I know, teenagers always know, I'm worried about this person. I'm worried about a family member, but how do I open that conversation? What do I say? How do I get my friend to help, right? Teenagers are generous and they often know what's going on, but we don't do the best job we can of empowering them to help, helping them understand that their voice is an important one, and that there's skills that we can help develop to help them step forward for themselves and for their friends. So think about what you want to ask our panel today. Now, if someone you know needs help with substance abuse, our county has many excellent and unique resources. Montgomery Goes Purple, I've already spoken to you about. Go ahead, check out their website. They have a great section on youth and family resources. And we also have the Child and Adolescent Assessment Services, which is housed in our Montgomery County Crisis Center and is open 24/7. They provide evaluations and can make recommendations with regards to substance use in youth. And then SAMHSA has a national helpline, 24/7, confidential consultation about not just substance use, but other mental health issues, and they can help with referrals, and they even have an online treatment locator. So you'll have access to these slides and to these links, so don't worry about that. The other thing I want to stress to everybody is that overdose is a medical emergency. It's not just about Narcan. Narcan can be life-saving. What we're seeing with the illicit fentanyl, which is very powerful, is sometimes more than one dose is needed. It's also a temporary reversal agent, which means emergency medical help is still needed. So we want to stress, and I'm sure Mr. Stevenson will talk about this in his training, that if you suspect an overdose, call 911. It's not just about the Narcan, it's about getting that person the emergency help they need. We get a lot of questions from youth about, will I get in trouble if I call for help? And there is law in Maryland that protects folks from prosecution, and because we never want that to be a barrier for someone getting help for themselves or somebody else in an emergency situation. I refer you to Montgomery County's Know the Risk campaign, Save a Life, a lot of excellent information put forward by our Department of Health and Human Services. If someone you know needs help right now, 988. Everybody knows 911. 988 is like 911 for mental health emergencies. So if someone is suicidal, don't forget 988. They're available by IM and text. I know a lot of our youth prefer that method of communication, but it's an amazing resource. And this is what used to be called the National Suicide Hotline. Remember, we had all those magnets, and now they've made it so simple, 988. And again, we have the Montgomery Crisis Center, which is a unique resource for our county. You can walk in, you can call, and they have a mobile crisis team that can come do evaluations out in the community if there's an emergency and they just can't get to where they need to go. All right. And again, you'll have these slides that point you towards important resources, but I want to thank you again for coming today. I can see people's minds working, thinking about what they're going to ask our amazing panelists, because it starts with you, right? It starts with youth. It starts with the people who care about them, whose opinion and influence in their lives is at the absolute core of how we make decisions and how we move in the world and keep ourselves and our families safe. So thank you. This is only the beginning of a conversation that we're continuing to have, but giving up your Saturday morning to learn more is going to help save lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kapunen. And just piggybacking on what she said, it's our last, our least, our littlest. Our school motto here at Clarksburg is to be good and do good. And I want to thank in a moment our panelists who are just going to do that, do good by giving some valuable information. But before that, I do want to thank some individuals that also just arrived. I know parking was a challenge because there's so many people, which is a wonderful thing. So any of our county government dignitaries, if you would please stand. I did not get everybody, but if any county government individuals are here, thank you. I see one. There's more in here. I think so. Okay. Well, thank you for being here as well. And we are putting some more chairs out, and so I know some folks are standing in the back, and we're putting down some more chairs for you. At this time, I'd like to introduce, oh, by the way, there are some chairs in the middle, so if we have two chairs here, if you have what we do in school, right? If you have a chair that's empty next to you, just raise your hand. Look at that. Crowd participation. So there are plenty of chairs. So if you want a seat, there is a seat. Just keep your hand high for just a moment. I know I'll ask you to put down in a second, but if you do need a chair, there's some chairs up here. Going, and down. All right. Nice. All right, here we go. So I'd like to, at this time, give some ground rules, because we do have our panelists here, and we do have microphones to my right and to my left for you to come up and to ask a question of our panelists. But this is an opportunity for you to ask questions to get that information and those answers that you need. But I want to give our first opportunity to our students that are here in the audience. Students, If at this time, any students that would like to first get up and come to the microphone, you will have that first opportunity to ask questions of our panelists. And in a moment, I'll go through those, the individuals that are up here in a second. But students, you can begin lining up. And then next, any other individuals after our students. We're going to ask you to come to the microphone. And if you did not get an opportunity, if you don't feel comfortable coming up and asking a question in a moment, there are QR codes where you can type in a question, and that will be read to the panelists so that they can answer those questions as well. So we're going to do kind of a hybrid approach, and we do have individuals online through the Montgomery County website to ask questions. But students, if you do want to begin lining up, you can, but and then adults afterwards, and then but first I'm going to go through the list of panelists. Okay, so first up, again, Dr. Kapunen is here. She's the MCPS medical officer, so thank you, Dr. Kapunen, for being here, our panelist. Round of applause for our panelists. And since Dr. Kapunen already spoke, I'm going to ask, after I read each name of the panelist, if you wouldn't mind just saying hello through the microphone. One, just to make sure it works, as well as any information that you do have and would like to give up front. Next up is Mr. Ben Stevenson II, Prevention and Harm Reduction Services Manager for the Department of Health and Human Services.
Good morning, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Next is Ms. Sarah Rose, Operations Manager, Montgomery County Local Behavioral Health Authority. Next would be Mr. Henok Solomon, Program Director, The Landing Adolescent Recovery Program and Recovery and Academic Program, Shepherd Pratt. Next, we have Ms. Latonia Rich, Executive Director, Tree of Hope, and Director of Montgomery County STEER. Next, Ms. Laura Mitchell, Chair, Montgomery Goes Purple, Chair, Montgomery County Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Advisory Council, Chair of the MCC-PTA Substance Use Prevention Committee, it's a mouthful, and MCPTA Vice President of Advocacy.
Good morning. Thank you. Not sure that. Yeah.
Next, we have Mr. Mark Hodge, Department of Health and Human. Okay. Not shy at all. I know who you all are. Department of Health and Human Services, Senior Administrator of School Health Services, and as you can see, our health nurses and health techs back there as well. So,
good morning.
Next, Captain Nicholas Pacerno, Director of Special Investigations Division, Montgomery County Police Department. Next, Captain Jordan Sistinsky, Director of Community Engagement Division, Montgomery County Police Department.
Morning.
And facilitating, and I know our students are coming up, and as well as others, so that's wonderful. Next, I'd like to welcome up Ms. Stephanie Izzard and Dr. Kyle Potter, who will be our panel facilitators. So, and thank you, Ms. Izzard, for all you do. So I know you don't like that shout out, but thank you, Ms. Izzard. So come on up.
They gave me a handheld mic, which is scary. First of all, give yourselves all an applause for showing up today because you are being part of the solution. So I personally want to thank you. So I know we have media here, and bless you, but our students' voice at Montgomery County Public Schools, we always elevate it first. So if you are a student and you have questions, you feel free to line up on either side. And of course, our caregivers, and then we'll go from there. If you are uncomfortable coming to the mic, if at any of the resource table, there's a QR code, you can just take that little picture and then text a question to us, and Dr. Potter and I will read those out to the panel and get them to answer it. Again, thank you all for taking this time to be a part of the solution.
Hello, my name is Della Bear. I'm a junior at Montgomery Blair High School and a staff writer for our newspaper, Silver Chips Print. I'm wondering if MCPS has a set policy on who they call or report an instance of overdose to when it occurs on a school campus. So if they call 911 each time and if they always report it to police.
Thanks so much for your question. And I'm going to ask my colleague from Health and Human Services to talk about the medical emergency piece, but I'll say just briefly in terms of how we share medical information, because we do have a commitment to protecting student privacy. So when there are medical emergencies in school, we don't share that information about every kind of medical emergency, right? So if someone has an allergic reaction because they ate a peanut and they're allergic, that's not something that we're going to blast out to the community. The purpose of notifying the community about medical emergencies is so you could be equipped if your student was impacted to be able to support conversations at home. So the things that we think about when we're thinking about sharing information about a critical incident that involves a very private matter for a person, right? So the things like a diagnosis or what is actually happening. One, a lot of that is private health information, and two, we might not know right away exactly what is going on, which is another thing we can talk about, how we call 911, what that on-the-ground response looks like. But there is more complexity about how we communicate that information. We give Narcan when there's a suspected overdose, but we may not actually have all the details about what's happening with that person right away. So when we communicate, we want to make sure that we communicate things to families in a way that helps them. We also want to make sure that we have enough information, the right information to share, and that information may not be there right away. So it's a sort of a case-by-case decision about who is this event impacting right now, and do we have details to share, and then how do we make sure we respect that student and family's privacy to health information as they're going through a crisis moment, and then a really significant thing that's happening for that family. Mr. Hodge?
Thank you. So I'm lucky enough to sit up here and wear purple, but my cheering squad, the school nurses that clapped for me when I was announced, are really the ones that are on the front lines in doing the work every day. It is an emergency, whether it's eating a peanut and needing an EpiPen, or someone who's overdosed and needing Narcan. The health room staff, the nurses and the school health room techs, are the ones that get called immediately and the ones who respond immediately. We are working on making sure that there's Narcan available for other staff across the school, so we don't waste any time and nurses running to the emergency. But security guards, teachers, others will have access to that as well. But without the nurses and the health room techs in our health room to provide that medical care, Dr. Kapunen mentioned that it's not just about giving Narcan, it's providing that medical care afterwards, making sure that they continue to breathe, making sure that their vital signs are where they're supposed to be, providing that care until 911 and emergency services arrives. So without them, we would have a lot more issues in the school, and I really appreciate them being here today and cheering me on, but also in the day-to-day work that they do. Dr. Kapunen is correct. We don't share all of that information with the school community necessarily. There's a law called HIPAA that it provides confidentiality, and we want to make sure that our students or our staff, whoever has medical issues while in the school, we don't share that information with everyone and break that HIPAA law. We want to maintain everyone's confidentiality. We do provide information to the school administration when that does happen. Obviously, when the 911 ambulance shows up, someone needs to know about that. But we want to make sure that we are always providing safety and security of information and medical information, especially for those students.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Colin Victor, a senior from Quince Orchard High School. My question is, what is Montgomery County doing to incorporate Narcan education into the curriculum? Like, students learn how to do CPR and stuff like that, but we aren't really taught what Narcan is and naloxone and all that stuff, and that would be very helpful in like stopping things happening in the community outside of school. So what is Montgomery County doing to educate the students?
I'm going to ask our expert, Ben Stevenson, who will be leading the Narcan training today. Our goal is to teach not just students, but students, families, and all the members of our community. And we are very lucky to have a robust Narcan training and availability program through our county health partners. Mr. Stevenson comes into our schools, but this service, this training right now is offered through the county for everyone, because we want folks not just to have it in school, we don't want not just students to have access, but we want everyone in the community. So I'm going to welcome him to talk more about the harm reduction program and how that training occurs.
Yeah, so through our harm reduction services program, we provide trainings twice a month. We do a Wednesday lunch and learn during the second Wednesday of each month. We also do a training on the fourth Tuesday in the evening at 6 p.m. And so we actually have, you can go to the knowtheriskmc.org website, register for the training, and we've gotten approval from our medical director who oversees the Narcan training program to train anyone from the age of 14 and up, and they can pretty much get a kit. We try to make sure that we're able to get parent approval, of course, but also in addition to getting kits from us, we also supply all of the fire stations throughout Montgomery County with Narcan kits as well, and you can actually access them through them too. So we try to get it, in the hands of as many youth and adults and family members as possible. So definitely take the opportunity to take the training. You'll definitely, everyone will actually get trained today. So you hopefully everyone get the opportunity to walk away with a kit today.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Isla. I'm a senior at Montgomery Blair. I'm also from Silver Chips newspaper. And a big thing that kind of my peers and I have noticed is kind of confusion or not fully understanding the gravity of the situation that we're facing. And I was just kind of wondering what MCPS is doing on a school by school basis to encourage an open conversation about this crisis, because this is amazing having this forum, and I'm just wondering how that's kind of being spread out to individual schools, because I've seen a lot of students just not fully understanding kind of the gravity of the crisis or even that there is a crisis. So I was just kind of wondering about that and that strategy. Thank you.
Thanks for your question. You're reading my diary. And, I said earlier that youth are an important part of this conversation, and what this conversation looks like in an individual school community is different than how we roll out these resources on a county level, on a district level. And that's looked a little different in each school community. We've had many principals, like Principal Owusu. I see some of our other principals here with us today, who we are partnering with at that school community level. Ms. Izzard, who you met, Dr. Potter, who's our other facilitator. They take time to kind of sit and listen to what does this community's needs look like, and what is the best way to roll out resources to help meet their individual needs. We've been talking at individual parent-teacher association meetings focused on the school community. So some of this engagement, we are so thrilled that this engagement is happening on the county level, happening on the district level, but the school community piece is another important level, and your voice, parents' voice, is part of what that looks like. So there are individual school community efforts, including with the principals in the schools, but also parent communities have been very engaged in coming forward and asking for resources in those spaces as well.
Dr. K, if I can jump in there, and all students in here, we are in many of your schools, and we're beginning and expanding that work. But if you're not sure, check with your principal and say, call Stephanie. Okay? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Layla Bachecki. I'm a sophomore, and Clarksburg is my home school. I wanted to first and foremost thank all the adults that donated their early Saturday morning to be here, because as a student, I think this was definitely needed. But my question was, what is Montgomery County doing on the idea of where the students are getting the drugs, or the idea that students are getting it from each other?
So thank you for that question. That's kind of where we stepped in law enforcement. First, I think it's important to realize, and it's discussed at a lot of these forums, that Maryland has a Good Samaritan law. And Maryland's Good Samaritan law basically says that if you report somebody you're with to 911 is having an overdose, a drug overdose, or an alcohol overdose, or any sort of overdose, and they're in a medical crisis, you can't be prosecuted for anything that's found at the scene. So if there's a communal use situation where somebody's using fentanyl with somebody else and they, somebody happens to overdose, you're not going to get in trouble for something that's present when you get notified from a law enforcement perspective, right? I can tell you from a practical point of view, being the police person who oversees our narcotics efforts, even though there's a legal prohibition against that, there's a practical prohibition against that as well. We as police, my detectives have no interest in arresting and prosecuting high school age students, youth, for possessing a drug. Our investigative resources are always going to be spent on source of supply. Every single fentanyl pill, counterfeit or otherwise, or counterfeit that's used in this county has an origination somewhere overseas, usually at the hands of a drug cartel. And our efforts from a law enforcement perspective are going to be interdicting those sources of supply, targeting those individuals who are targeting you all, your friends, yourselves, in that taking advantage of those individuals who want to use, who are using these drugs. So that's going to be our effort towards those people, whether they be, I mean, most of the time they're going to be adults, they're going to be much older than high school students, but anyone who's targeting high school students is going to be our focus for our enforcement efforts, right? But I think it's also important as part of this conversation to recognize that things have kind of changed over the last 2 or 3 years when it comes to fentanyl use in schools. Montgomery County Public Schools, schools all across the country, right? There was a time, not that long ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, where we were hearing and learning that students who were taking fentanyl, counterfeit fentanyl pills, were doing so accidentally, right? You were buying a Xanax tablet, a Adderall tablet, a Percocet, thinking you were buying the pharmaceutical grade version of that drug, right? What we're hearing now, over the last 6 months to a year, that's not the case anymore. People as young as 14 and 15 and maybe even younger are purchasing these drugs knowing exactly what they are. And that's kind of terrifying to me because the danger of fentanyl is real. And the idea that what you're taking is made with such careless regard for your safety behind the scenes. You could put 10 fentanyl pills into a lab. Some of them may have no fentanyl in them at all. Some of them may have just enough to get somebody high, and some of them may have enough with one single dose to kill you. And that's what's really, really scary about this problem. And the problem is growing, and things like this today and the question you all are asking are so critical in trying to educate the community of you all to recognize how dangerous this is. And I'm not going to spout off a bunch of numbers, but I think this one particular statistic is really critical. It was shown in one of the earlier slides that from 2021 to 2022, there were 78% more youth overdoses, where we saw an increase of 78%, right? That number was staggering. That number was what drove a lot of this conversation to be happening today. And those were end of 2022 numbers. What I can tell you is today, January 28th, 28 days into 2023, we've seen a 433% increase in youth overdose from last year this time. 433%. Over 50% of the total overdoses we investigate, as in my division, over 53% of them are from youth this year so far. And yes, it's very early in the year, and certainly numbers can change, and certainly it's a very small sample size. My high school statistics teacher would be very proud of me for recognizing that. But that's a real concern. And I think the factors that drive overdose for youth are going to be different than that drive overdose factors for adults, both from a point of prevention and a point of intervention. So that's kind of a rambling response to your question, but I just want to make it very clear that our role in law enforcement isn't arresting youth for possession. My efforts from my investigators are always going to be driving those sources of supply, usually going to be adults, those who are targeting you all. So thank you for your question, but I just want to kind of put that in perspective of why we're driving our efforts that way.
Can I just add one comment to that? I'm sorry. Those numbers are staggering, and the fatalities, the fatal overdoses, we know about those, but I can tell you there are a lot more overdoses that are revived by Narcan in the community that we never know about. Those are from the police. That's when emergency response is contacted and involved. Those that go to the hospital themselves by a friend or a family member, or that are revived at home with Narcan, we don't know those numbers. So they're much larger than that, just to give you a scope of the problem and make sure that we understand that.
And another important part of your question I heard was, you know, how are kids getting it and what, as a community, can we do about it, right? So I'm really thrilled to have Mr. Solomon and Ms. Rich with us today, because they support youth and families struggling with substance use on a daily basis, and I'm curious about your thoughts to share about, you know, how do we support the community in this way?
Good morning, everyone. So just from my experience, I think the best way to counter to, you know, this epidemic is education. I've had a lot of parents of kids as young as 12 with Percocet addiction, fentanyl addiction, and it's unfortunate, but the parents don't even know what Narcan is. And so I think the best way to kind of move around this is education and informing not just the kids, but also parents and the community as well.
Hello, I'm Latanya Rich, and we just opened a Recovery Community Center in downtown Rockville that supports people who have struggled with addiction. So what we do is we train people to use their lived experience to help other people who are just coming out, to help connect to resources, to plan goals, short-term goals for themselves, to give like meaning back into their lives. So they can come to the Recovery Community Center and get support with workforce development. We have a computer lab. We have meeting support groups there, NAAA and all other support groups, peer groups. And there's something about seeing a person who's been through what you've been through and gotten to the other side that they can hear you better. So, you know, struggling with a daughter with mental health, she couldn't hear me, right? But there were some people that were in the community that spoke her language that was able to help her be, you know, a productive member of society. She's doing great now, and I'm really so proud of her, and I had nothing to do with it, right? I'm clear on that. So we use our Recovery Community Center to help people figure their thing out, whatever that looks like, no judgment. And that's what's really needed in the community of the people who are actually struggling.
Thank you. And then the second part to that question was, you know, what is happening in schools regarding accessing illicit fentanyl. Mr. Stevenson, I was wondering if you could share about some of the work that you are doing in schools with the prevention groups.
So we provide, just like this forum, just a lot of educational opportunities just to educate about the dangers of counterfeit prescription medications, because a lot of young people are actually accessing them through social media, unfortunately. So we try to let them know that they can't necessarily trust their eyes, which I'm going to speak on in my presentation. The fact that you can't tell if it has fentanyl in it or not. The importance of knowing, you know, how to use Narcan as well. And then we also utilize a few evidence-based interventions in the schools, like Botman Life Skills, to help educate young people about making conscious decisions, just about life in general, but hopefully preventing them from going down that path of using any types of substances. Because when it comes to young people, you can't only just think about opioids, you gotta think about underage drinking and cannabis and all those other things as well. And so, definitely making sure that we address all substances and not just one.
And I'd also like to talk too about access to treatment, because this is another piece of it. We look at, there's prevention, there's treatment, there's recovery, and there's harm reduction. And all four of those components are extremely important when we're tackling the opioid overdose epidemic. So we have the prevention education programs that we are offering to the schools, and events like this, and just spreading awareness, because a big piece of it is knowing and getting the information out there to the teenagers that literally one pill can kill. It's not an exaggeration, it's not hyping it up, it is dangerous, it is taking the lives of our youth.
Before we go to the next question, we do want to elevate that MCPS has a robust health curriculum that at age appropriate does discuss some of these challenges. So we do want to just kind of piggyback to that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm a senior at Wheaton High School, and my question kind of stems from the belief that overdose and drug use is more of a public health crisis than a criminal crisis. So I was wondering, first from the student perspective, what can we do when we do call 911 and we know a friend or a peer is suffering from an overdose? Is there any way, I know a lot of students don't want police to get involved because they don't want to get their friend in trouble, and I know the Good Samaritan law protects the person calling, but is there a way that you can also protect the person overdosing?
That's a great question. Much like Captain Paserno said, we have no interest. I run the School Resource Officer, Community Engagement Officer program, and I can also speak for this on patrol. We have no interest in arresting anyone who's in any kind of a medical health crisis. It's not what we're here for. What we're here for, much like Captain Paserno said, is to find the source that got them to that point. Jordan Satinsky personally believes absolutely with you that we got to make sure that we take care of our kid, and whoever it may be, with kid, adult, whatever. I can't say absolutely that nobody would ever get in trouble. I can't say that because there could be other factors involved that are outside of just the overdose in and of itself. But that's the focus. When we're there, the focus is getting that person help. It's getting that person assistance so they can come back to school, come back to their families. That's what we're there for. And that's our main tenet and focus. Right? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And also just the Good Samaritan law protects both sides of the equation, right? So everyone who's going to be there is protected. But you asked the question about criminal versus public health. I don't think it's a binary decision. I think you can have both be present. There's a public health issue when it comes to the addiction, and it comes to some of the factors that are driving usage. And I think there's a criminal element that drives to taking advantage of those people who are facing a public health crisis. And so it's not mutually exclusive. They kind of both exist. And I think it's important to kind of take that. It's not one or all. It's not a binary choice. You actually have both things present. Our concern from the policing side, as far as a enforcement provision, is going to be the criminal side of things. Our position as caring human beings who are members of this community cares also about the public health side of things. So like I said, they're not really mutually exclusive, at least that's how I look at it. But certainly for those of you who have friends, friends who are going through addiction issues, and it doesn't take much with fentanyl to go from a user of it, an experimenter of it, to an addict. And you can have that happen at 15. We see people, my detectives interview those people who are found with fentanyl to try to find sources of supply. We see 15 and 16-year-old kids going through withdrawal symptoms, just like you would for a 30 or 35-year-old adult. So, the panels talked about the resources that are available to you. Take advantage of those resources. Take advantage of the opportunities that you have here to plug your friends and family into those streams of help, because that's going to be what gets your friends the help they need. It's not going to be through law enforcement intervention with a 15 or 16-year-old, 17-year-old student who's going through addiction. our jobs are connected, but they're separate. But you're lucky here in Montgomery County, you have tons and tons of resources available to get you the help that you need.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Huang, and my home school is Clarksburg High School. My question is, what is the fastest way students can spread awareness about the situation and how dangerous drugs are?
Thank you so much for asking that question. So basically, in the county, we have a youth ambassadors program called the Be the One Youth Ambassadors Program, which we try to empower young people to use their voice to educate about the dangers of substance use, as well as about mental health, suicide prevention, so educating about the signs of depression and anxiety, as well as just promoting overall well-being. And so Be the One, the Youth Ambassadors Program has an Instagram page in which we try to encourage young people. Every time I go to a high school, I try to get them to follow us on Instagram at least, and just share a lot of the messaging, because there's a lot of messaging around substances, just around mental wellness, just about well-being, about helping a friend, supporting a friend, about 988 as well. And I think, when it comes to, sharing, spreading the word and things like that, is very important of really just, taking the information you learn here today and taking it back to your peers at your school and say, hey, this is what I learned on Saturday. You need to, check into this and know this information. And so I think it really just starts with just having those conversations and continuing the conversations. Even with talking to parents, I tell them, having the conversations early and often is important. Not having a one-off conversation, but continuing the conversation and being actively engaged and knowing what our youth are seeing on social media. And so when it comes to, young people, just spreading the word and sharing, the knowledge and information that you're getting here, because there's a lot of misinformation online. Anyone can post anything on social media. Anyone can post anything on the internet. So it's just important to make sure you follow the guidance and information from the professionals.
We're also really excited that many of our student leaders have stepped up and asked us, how do we help? What do we do? From student government to our student athlete leaders to interested organized groups who are interested in public health or just simply caring about others. So a lot of the solution lies with you. The way that youth learn and communicate, we learned this in the pandemic for sure, is so different than how we reach out to parents through those communication channels. So what you want to learn about, what you care about, what you're worried about, and the best way to spread information, youth really need to be a part of that. So I challenge you to, hold your elected student leaders at your school accountable. Come talk to us if you are from another group, but get together, be part of the conversation, because adults don't always know the best way to communicate what you care about. Youth, in my experience, when you let us know what are your largest concerns and help be part of the solution to get that information out in a way that you understand and engage and can use it, that is the best way when you're partnering in that communication.
Before we go to the next question, there have been a couple of parents who wanted to meet one-on-one with someone, and so we are available to anyone in purple that may need to give you some help for your students, or after the forum, please come to one of us and we can help you or your students. And then we want to also make an announcement to other parents, our parents who are just arrived.
Tenemos servicios de traducción. Los audífonos se encuentran acá afuera si necesitan servicios de traducción.
Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Madison Watts and I'm a sophomore at Rockville High School. So it's been indicated that we've had purchases of these drugs from students in much younger ages. And I know that these overdoses have mainly been affecting high school students, but how are we making sure that we're doing preventative work by beginning these discussions and this education at a really early level, like targeting middle school and elementary school students?
So one thing that you should know is that Maryland law, the Start Talking Maryland Law Act, requires opioid education in our schools in bands starting before 6th grade. and going all the way through high school. Is it enough? Probably not, but it is a start, and it starts the conversation, and doing these kinds of things, bringing that into the schools and the programs that we've talked about is very helpful. But in the curriculum, there are pieces in that. Hopefully that will start to get more integrated, where they're, as Stephanie mentioned, they're building out the new health curriculum. I'm on that advisory committee, and we're really trying to get that into all of the classes. So there's information in biology, there's information in chemistry when you're talking, because particularly in high school, you have health A and health B, and that's it. So you have 2 semesters where you're going to get that for sure. But high school's 4 years, and that's a really interesting time, an important time. But middle schoolers get it every year. More is better, more frequent conversations, and that's where the community comes in, the parents come in. So it is happening in schools, but it can't be a standalone.
Madison, thank you so much for your question. And you bring up something very important, that it's never too early to talk to your kids about medication safety and to create open spaces for talking about mental health or concerning things that they might be seeing in their family, in their community, on the news. And we had an exciting conversation with the middle school principals this week, because what that looks like, how you engage Mr. Stevenson was at a middle school talking to some students this week, how you engage at the middle school level, what the worries are, concerns, and how you engage younger kids at the elementary school level. A lot of parents are coming forward with these questions because they know this is not something that you start talking about in high school. Our health education curriculum is robust, but there are many other opportunities to roll out that education and support. So, thank you for thinking about our younger kids and our middle school students. Students are not isolated in like the one level they're at. They're members of families and communities, and these are all great questions that we should be asking each other. How do we talk to our youngest kids? How do we talk to our middle school students? And how do we talk to everyone in our community in a way that addresses the problem that they're experiencing? Great question.
I also want to emphasize the importance, too, of the parents and other adults who are within the sphere of influence of teenagers. There's a free resource available through Maryland FYI program called Parent Craft, and it's typically a $200 program that is available for free for any parent who has a youth that wants to talk to their child, and it teaches effective communication skills. It has multiple videos, easy to access, easy to use. I really encourage parents to consider looking into that too.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add in the fact that we do a training with our peers on recovery coaching, which actually teaches people how to talk to people with not just substance abuse issues, but with any type of issue that they were having a difficult time. And I feel like everyone should take it because it gives you communication skills, helping you not judge and make that person that you're speaking to feel safe. That's really a skill that you have to practice, using motivational interviewing, and I think parents and students could really use it in speaking to their peers, because it's such a delicate topic, right? You could scare someone away, but if you're trained, you might be able to communicate and save a life.
How can I help support my friend while her parent goes through this?
That's all I heard.
How can I help support my friend while her parent's going through this right now?
I think that the best way is to look for treatment programs, also like a community that supports teens in recovery, and just also, as some of the panelists have said, finding more information about where they can get support, not just for the teens, but also for the parents, because there are parent support groups for adults who have children or teens who are battling with addiction, because it's not an easy thing to go through. And I just want to commend you for being a great friend, and seeking and asking how you can support.
Yeah, there are also other support groups. There are also other support groups called Al-Anon and Adult Children of Alcoholics that person can attend. They don't necessarily have a substance issue, but they are children of people who have substance issues, and she can find people that she can talk to about what she's going through. And there's people that'll help them the same way their parents hopefully are getting help.
I see two parts to your question, and this is why I love teenagers with their generous hearts and spirits. One is, how do I help my friends? Like, what does their family member who might be struggling with substance use have to do? And we've heard about the different treatment programs and resources for family members. But this question I get all the time as a pediatrician, because kids are so generous and they see their friends going through something and they may not know what to say or what their role is. Sometimes it's hard, if your friend is going through something, to ask a trusted adult for help, because you're not sure if you're betraying their confidence. And when they're sharing something private with you, kids, you guys know this, have a good sense when something's going on with a family member, with a friend, but they don't always know how to open up that mental health conversation and be of help, even if it's something simple like, I'm worried about you, can we spend time together? Is there something going on? Be the One, which Mr. Stevenson mentioned, is an amazing resource for just learning how to talk to people about issues, not necessarily being the mental health professional, but just how do you check in with somebody. There's another resource called Seize the Awkward, which is about how do we open these conversations and how do we provide that friend or family member support, short of being the mental health professional or pushing them to resources. But that kind of skill right now is so critical with so many of us struggling with mental health issues. And kids are feeling it. They want to help. So knowing just how to check in on someone and express your concern and doing those simple things that we do for each other's mental health every day, so critical right now. And then the other message that I want folks to propagate amongst kids, that it's not betraying someone's confidence to ask for help if you're really worried from an adult, right? They understand privacy and how hard it is to share something private, but if you're worried about a friend, it's never wrong to go to a parent, to a teacher, and say, I have this friend, I'm worried about them, how can I support them? I don't know what to do. Like, you are not alone in this.
Hi, I am a parent of a child at Ridgeview. First of all, I want to say big up to Dr. Poster. Matt Poster has been very supportive throughout what I've been going through for the past, 4 months. So would you consider a child selling or taking drugs a threat to themselves and to others? I ask that because I've been reaching out for the last 4 months to all the resources that you guys posted up there, and I don't seem to be able to be getting any help. I've seen my son like 4 times in the last 3 months, and 2 of those times he was in handcuffs, right? And I've reached out to the school, I've reached out to the resources, I even filed an emergency evaluation petition, and Shady Grove said he wasn't a threat to himself and anyone else. But I know he's selling, and I know he's taking something. And right now he's not even at home. So is he a threat to himself and the other students at the school?
Ma'am, that's a great question. Let me first address the emergency evaluation part you just discussed, and I'm sorry you're going through this. Police officers and licensed clinical social workers, doctors, can fill the emergency petitions out for people that are actively hurting themselves or others, or potentially hurting others. Unfortunately, sometimes when they get to the hospital, the doctors see them in a different light, because the doctors see them now calm down to a point where they're not harming themselves, obviously, or others, and they don't have a place to put them. That's the other part. Hospitals are overwhelmed right now with lots of things, and this has been going on for quite a while. But mental health struggles, as we all know, as Dr. Boonen mentioned earlier, have been increasing. The resources, and this is statewide, this is just not here in the county, have not increased at the same level. We have limited resources as to where to put individuals that are in that state, and unless they're actively harming themselves at that moment and continuing, or have a threat to continue that we can show, doctors are less likely to certify them and hold them in an involuntary capacity. And I'm not trying to say this to disparage doctors or mental health professionals by any stretch. It's just a lack of resources, because what will happen is they end up sitting in the ER sometimes for days, before they end up getting placement into a facility. So does that do more harm? Does that do less harm? Is that a strain on the resources? These are all things that those folks have to take into account. Us as police officers, our job is to come in and try to bring the situation down, de-escalate it as quickly and as safely as possible, and then turn them over to the folks that can assist. Captain Pacerno and I aren't therapists. We're not in a position to make those determinations past that. I am sorry that happened to you, and when we're done here today, if you want, you and I can chat real quick and maybe get some other folks from MCPS together if that works for you.
I would like to add to, I'm the director for the STEER team, and we are the opioid crisis response team for the county. So when there is an overdose in the ERs, our peers are deployed. They're a 24-hour team. We're on call 24 hours. And if you ask for a STEER referral, and if your son is cooperating and wants help, STEER will come out and they will deploy them into treatment. We're getting people into treatment in 24 hours. We have a really good relationship with the hospitals. They'll actually hold a person overnight, to get them into a bed. With Tree of Hope, we'll Uber them wherever they need to go in the state of Maryland to treatment. So we've removed a lot of those barriers, but the biggest barrier is the willingness to enter into treatment. So if your son is willing, you can go and talk to the charge nurse and say, can you please do a STEER referral, which is the hospital's calling the crisis center and asking for peer support for a STEER referral, and then the peers are deployed to the hospital.
So since he's not willing, it's just have to be that until...
Unfortunately, we can't put anybody in treatment unless they're willing. You can't mandate someone to treatment.
I also want to say too, with the parent craft training that I mentioned earlier, the series of videos, it is an evidence-informed program, and they've found that the parents who complete this training have a much higher success rate in getting their child into treatment. It increases about 70% to getting the kids willing to go to treatment, because a big piece of it is encouraging the person to take responsibility and accountability for themselves, to help support and encourage, allow some natural consequences, again, in a safe way, but that's where the parent craft training is really, really helpful and powerful.
This is kind of where my hats all meld together in the policy and the advocacy and the challenges that we have. We don't have residential care. We don't have enough care of any kind for mental health and substance use, particularly for youth here. There is discussion, there have been bills introduced about involuntary, I don't want to say commitment, that's not the right word, but admittance to a program. But the problem is we don't have a place to do that. So where they usually end up is in jail. When we have to hold somebody for their safety or someone else's, they very often end up in the jails. If not at that moment, then they end up doing something that gets them arrested, or they end up in jail. And so that's been the pushback about that, what Florida and other states call the Baker Act, is where do they get that treatment that we're going to mandate them to go to? The other part of that is mandated treatment doesn't necessarily work as well. It's very hard if the person is not in that place where they're ready to go. But what we have to do is talk to our legislators, talk to everybody that holds the purse strings and writes the policies, and make sure that we have those facilities, so when that window opens and they are ready, we are there with a wedge and a place for them to go to get the help they need.
Thank you so much for your question and sharing your story and bringing this really complex problem of how to get folks to treatment to light. And we don't want to give the impression that it's just the youth's problem of coming. It is not, or the parents. Parents are not alone in trying to access this treatment, but there's a very real problem with the number of treatment programs, especially higher, more intensive programs that are out there. Is something that we feel passionately angry about, frankly, and we invite you to help us advocate, because there needs to be more treatment resources for youth. There needs to be more higher level intensive outpatient day program and residential treatment for youth, not just in Montgomery County, but in all of Maryland. There's so many barriers leading up to showing up for treatment that the fact that that program is not there, too busy, or like not enough beds should not be an additional barrier.
Or enough staff.
Or enough
That's if some places have beds and don't have staff.
Did anybody else want to share?
Okay, just jumping in real quick. So we're running a little bit short on time for this, so we're going to take the questions from the folks that are up at the mics now. For those questions that we're collecting via the QR code, we will make sure that we create an FAQ document that we will have posted on the website and get it out to all the attendees via email blast following the event.
Hello, I'm Steph. I'm a junior at John F. Kennedy High School, and I've found myself in the health room during, at the same time as some of these overdoses have been reported, and I've noticed a disturbing lack of information given to the health techs by no fault of the students. But how is there a way we can educate students and staff to give better and more adequate information about situations like this on a case-to-case basis?
So part of and I'll speak on behalf of the health room staff, since that was part of your question. So part of our responsibility in leadership in school health is to make sure that all of our staff are well trained. We did have actually a training yesterday that Mr. Stevenson provided for all of our school health room techs and school nurses. There are a lot of resources out there. We want to make sure that all of our staff know about those resources and know how to refer students to them, to those resources. You have the benefit of being in a school at Kennedy that's about to open its wellness center. And so we have a lot more resources as a result, including nurse practitioner, positive youth development staff, as well as mental health resources there in the school. So as soon as that is up and running at full pace, you'll have a much easier access to some of those resources for sure. But that's part of what we're doing today is educating students and their parents, but we're also educating staff, and that's why a large group of school nurses are here today to continue to be educated and learn about more of the resources and how to address this issue across the county. And so that's the best we can do is to continue to provide this education to our students, to our staff, and we won't stop until everyone knows what they need to be doing.
Hello again. Thank you for taking a second question. I'm just hoping to follow up with the members of the police department. You kind of mentioned before suspects who are specifically targeting youth and selling them fentanyl specifically. So I'm just wondering if this is a problem that's increased recently, people that are intentionally trying to target youth, if this is malicious intent, and I'm also wondering if there's any kind of data about whether or not students are taking fentanyl on purpose, or youth are taking fentanyl on purpose, or taking it mistakenly, and what kind of proportion that might be.
So in terms of data, there's a lot out there. We can always talk after. I can give you some more of it. So the question about whether or not youth are intentionally taking fentanyl, if you'd asked me that question a year ago, I would have said, no, most youth are taking fentanyl thinking they are taking a Xanax or an Adderall or one of the more commonly abused pharmaceutically available drugs. Today, I would say most youth overdoses are happening particularly with Percocets, the M30 blue Percocet. I would say the majority of youth are taking those knowing they're taking a fentanyl. When you talk about if youth are being targeted, when there's a lot of publicly available information on something called rainbow fentanyl. We have seen pictures of it. They are pills. It looks like Smarties or Skittles. Like, they look colorful. They're meant to be attractive to youth. So absolutely, youth are being targeted by dealers. And when I say dealer, I mean, there's a reason why these pills are being marketed in the way they are, right? Certainly, there's an illicit market for counterfeit pills across the spectrum of addiction ages, and from 15 to 50 or older. But certainly today, what we're seeing, I think, over the last year, I have, without question, the information I'm hearing from my detectives is they are purchasing, that youth are buying pills 100% knowing they are buying a counterfeit pill that contains fentanyl. And that's scary. It's also scary some of the ways that they're being ingested, doing things that normally wouldn't be subjectively acceptable for somebody to take a drug. You're seeing people use those methods today at 15, 16, 17 years old that you wouldn't have seen 2 or 3 years ago to ingest the drug.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello. As the last student said, thank you for taking a second question. I really wanted to know what Montgomery County was doing specifically for the parents of the students who are experiencing, who have experienced an overdose.
So I am a parent of a now adult person who spent 15 years in active substance use, and my mission in doing all of this is making sure that parents know what to look for, know what they're seeing when they're seeing it, and recognize those signs and know how to access resources and how to find help for their children. And coming in here and asking publicly was really, really brave. We wouldn't have done that 5 years ago, probably. I did, but in front of the lieutenant governor. I cried through it the whole time. It's very, very hard. But we are working with parents in the schools as well. I'm starting a parent discussion group on February 1st, so that will be the first meetings at noon and at 7. That'll be on the Montgomery Goes Purple website so that people can join. Parents have questions, they want to talk about it. They have concerns, they're not able to come in here or are not comfortable coming in here and doing that publicly. We want to provide that forum for them to learn more all the time. And people in here, you may have questions you think of as soon as you leave that you didn't think of here. And you're like, man, why didn't I ask that? So we want to provide those resources. You can also message Montgomery Goes Purple to reach us. And I don't have all the answers, believe me, but I have a lot of connections that do have answers and will help us find the answers. So I can share that much with you.
Hi, thank you again for taking another question of mine. So I was kind of curious specifically about protocol when 911 is called for an overdose, specifically on school grounds, MCPS school grounds, and I'm sure it's very different case by case, but I'm just kind of curious if when police arrive, is there a social worker or mental health professional or expert that accompanies the police or the health professionals that are coming? Just kind of curious because I know we've talked a lot about how this is not just a criminal issue, this is a public health issue, a mental health issue, everything is so intertwined. So I was just curious about the protocol about that.
As far as the police response, presently we don't have a model where I have therapists in the cars with my cops. That's coming, but it's a few months off still. I would like to have that, and personnel aside and allotments, I'd like to have that during the day so I could have my cops and therapists together, especially for something just like this. I'll let the MCPS folks answer the therapy part of it, but the CEOs, when they respond, the SROs, into one of these situations, they work directly with the MCPS administration and health staff in that particular school to make sure that that student, faculty, or staff member gets all the assistance they need. I'll let MCPS answer the other half.
So at MCPS, we have a district level crisis coordination team who responds to incidents, not just medical emergencies, but when something significant happens at a school, there is a district level team that gets together and thinks about what resources need to be provided. So, at one of our schools, we had an incident that happened, unfortunately, on a Friday, but we were able to do virtual supports the very next day. So what that looks like really depends on the magnitude and the impact of the incident, but we do have internal resources and partner with our Department of Health and Human Services to understand the impact. Sometimes things happen and it affects multiple schools, or it might affect other areas in the community where that youth might have been. So that really is case specific, but there is a district level team that sort of talks about what the impact is, and we respond. You're talking about sort of support for not just the police, but how to help people process. We have both internal and we partner with DHHS for that.
Thank you so much.
I'll just say, too, that Montgomery County Council of PTAs has a CARES team that goes along with them and supports the staff, so they're available to support the students, whether it's answering phones or subbing in a class, bringing breakfast like we have here, things like that. It really does help because that is a monumental task.
Yeah, that's super important. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lizzie. I'm a junior at Wheaton High School. So if a student dies while another student or staff member is performing a life-saving measure like CPR or administering Narcan, people could have a Narcan allergy, is the person who performed those measures liable for any suit or other legal action?
No, that's exactly the reason that the Good Samaritan Law was enacted. And that's not just here in Maryland, but across the United States. So anyone who does their best effort to provide care to someone cannot be prosecuted if that person does not survive.
Okay, thank you.
Quick comment, too. I know Ben will cover this, and I know we have to wrap up, but if you suspect an overdose and you administer Narcan and it's not an opioid overdose, it does not do anything. It will not hurt you. It's safe to use. So if they're unconscious and you don't know and you give them Narcan, it could be their best hope. If it is an overdose, it'll work. If it's not, it won't. That's why you call 911 first. I'm sure Ben will cover that, but I wanted to make sure that it tagged on with that answer.
Okay, and we have our last question.
Thank you. I'm a parent of 3 Montgomery County public school children, 1 here at this school, 2 will follow. And, I get information when they come in and they tell me what's going on, and I'm sure you all know it. And, marijuana is the gateway drug, and I know fentanyl is all popular, but she tells me she doesn't even want to go to the restroom in this school because there's rampant drug use in the restrooms. And she, I know that's a minor offense now, but are we addressing any of that?
That's public safety, not just in the community, but in our schools, is an important, critical part of the problem, which is why we are partnering with our CEO program, our local police department, and our security staff. So that's something that we're going to continue to have open conversations with the community about. Today, we really want to focus on answering youth and parent questions, just from the treatment teams and the experts. But thank you for bringing it up. That is one incredibly important facet of the problem that we're actively discussing, and we are continuing conversations with the community, importantly at the local school levels as well. Thank you.
So I just want to point out, as we move to the next phase, so that you know some additional people to ask questions to. So most of the Board of Education is here. The board president, Carla Silvestri. New member, Gracie Rivera-Oven, Julie Yang, Rebecca Smondrowski, and Lynn Harris, I know, is still in the room.
She's in the back.
She's in the back. There, she's jumping up and down. I want everyone to know Keisha Davis, Dr. Keisha Davis, who's the Montgomery County Health Officer. So if you have another question for Keisha, or Sonia Mora, who is part of the county executive's team, who's also here. Assistant Police Chief Willie Parker Lone, who's guarding the door in the back. So Ed Clark, right there, who is the security chief for the Montgomery County Public Schools. Don't forget Dr. Pat Murphy right here. And of course, what Jordan Satinsky was talking, Captain Satinsky was talking about, the Community Engagement Officer Program. That is the police outreach to the schools, the officers who are assigned to each one of the clusters. So please feel free to ask Captain Satinsky or Captain Pasirno questions afterwards, or Assistant Chief Parker Lone, because that question that came up before is vitally important. So if you want to direct it to Dr. Murphy, Mr. Clark, any of the police officers who are here, please do that. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And before I wanted to just say, as principal of Clarksburg High School, and I know my colleagues, the other principals, I see Beth Thomas, QO principal, I saw Dr. Muncie, Wheaton principal, and assistant principals from other schools, Seneca Valley and others. If there's ever an issue, whether it's a bathroom, in a classroom, or in a hallway, out on the baseball field, wherever, we do ask that parents, students, let someone know. Basically, see something, say something. We can't do anything if we don't know. So if you actually, for example, go to any one of our bathrooms here, they're all propped open on purpose. There's a hook, all the doors are open in every single bathroom. We go in there and we do checks. We close down bathrooms and we move students forward. We do a lot of proactive things so that way we're not caught off guard. And so we do need help though. We do need students and staff and families to say something. So again, when you see something, say something. It's private, no fingerprints, we will address it. So I wanted to make sure I said that. Students in the audience, thank you so much for stepping forward, and if you didn't step forward, that's okay, but your presence here is important. So yes, round of applause for that. For students, you do get SSL hours for being here, so just your presence alone. And so at the end, not right now, you can go to the table up front to my left here and pick up a form, and we'll have that signed for you so you can get those student service learning hours. So in a moment, I'm going to ask our fantastic tech crew to move us into a video, and then after that, I'll get up here one last time to inform everyone about that Narcan training that you're gonna get, and I'll tell you how to do that, as well as to pick up those Narcan. But I'm gonna first turn it over to our fantastic wizards to my left to start that video message about the dangers of fentanyl.
Greetings. I'm Dr. Patricia Kapunen, Medical Officer for Montgomery County Public Schools. On December 9th, I sent out an urgent message to our community regarding a dangerous trend in substance use-related overdoses and deaths, in particular due to a synthetic opioid called fentanyl. What is fentanyl and why is it a problem? Substance use is an ongoing challenge in public health. However, the increased availability of illegally produced fentanyl is a unique and urgent problem for a couple of reasons. First of all, fentanyl is a very powerful opioid, up to 50 times more potent than heroin and up to 100 times more potent than morphine, so even very small amounts can be deadly. Secondly, illegally produced fentanyl can be added to other illicit drugs and is frequently found in counterfeit prescription pills, so individuals may not even know they are ingesting it. This can really complicate how we recognize and respond to a life-threatening overdose. So how much of a problem is it? Data provided by the Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services indicate that opioid-related visits to hospital emergency departments have increased since 2020 for children and youth. Data collected by the Montgomery County Police Department indicate that while overdoses are decreasing in the population broadly, the number of overdoses, specifically in youth, is increasing. What is our community doing about illicit fentanyl? Fentanyl presents a complex community problem, and community problems need community solutions. So MCPS, along with the Department of Health and Human Services, is part of a community coalition called Montgomery Goes Purple. This coalition of county government agencies, community organizations, and individuals coordinate education, resources, and support regarding substance use and recovery for the entire community. For the school community, our group's work in combating this trend includes increasing awareness of and access to the life-saving emergency overdose medication naloxone, otherwise known as Narcan, connecting schools with youth supports and programs, and offering resources that help families address substance use with youth and act if they are concerned. In the meantime, if you or someone you know needs support with substance use, you can locate treatment services using the SAMHSA Behavioral Health Treatment Services Locator tool at findtreatment.samhsa.gov. For emergency mental health services, call or text 988 or contact the Montgomery County Crisis Center at 240-777-4000. MCPS remains committed to a safe and substance-free school environment,
and to our mission of supporting students and all those in our community who work to ensure their success and well-being. For this work, we are thankful for our community partners, our dedicated staff, and are truly invested in community solutions that empower our most important partners, our students and their families. Thank you for spending this time with us today.
One other announcement. I wanted to announce that we do have, if you haven't done so, we do have the COVID vaccine clinic upstairs in our media center. We've had them almost for a year every weekend. So I want to make that public plug. For those age 50 and older who get vaccinated or boosted, you can also go up there as well. So thank you for that. Next, our Narcan training. There's a couple of things going on. So outside for parents, if you might have taken a ticket to go into the C.O.P.E trailer, which is from our partners from the Montgomery County Police Department, an opportunity for parents to go into a makeshift bedroom, per se, and to go through that experience. And so it's a timed entry, I think, for that. So, or there's tickets for that, and so make sure that you do access that. If you are here for the Narcan training and distribution, you're going to stay where you are, and someone else is going to come on up and go through that training with you. For others, we do have a lot of resources around the room, so make sure that you stop by and pick up the information from those tables and speak to those individuals in regards to the resources that we do have available for you. Again, I want to say that this is just the first of many. This is a beginning. This is not a safety and security piece. This is an informational piece. You've got some powerful, powerful tools that you've gotten today, and those questions, as has been stated, will be up on our MCPS website, so that FAQ, so that you can get, if you submitted a question, you can get answers to those questions using that QR code. So that's really, really important. And again, if you do have a question personally that you want to ask, we have individuals up in the purple shirts up here as our forum is around the room to speak to them. So make sure that you do that. Also want to see my PTSA president over there, so thank you for coming, and of our parents as well. With that said, thank you for coming out to Clarksburg. Stay put if you're here for the Narcan training. Thank you so much.
You can relax. You got. Oh. Yeah, I'm hopefully trying to do a hands-on and show I actually administer. Yeah. No, I was just curious. Okay.
Okay, if you are here for the Narcan training, if you can move up a little if you want to, that would be great. If you are not here for the Narcan training, can you move that away?
Go ahead and start.
If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. So that, I guess that takes me back to when I used to teach school. So thank you for engaging in that. All right, so good morning. I know that I have the challenge of trying to educate you as fast as possible because I'm the one standing between you and lunch. And I try not to stand between people and food because I've been trampled before when people have been hungry. So I'm going to do my best to give you pretty much every piece of information you need to save a life without getting too deep into the weeds of additional information. So, all right, so typically what this training covers, we cover overdose data for Montgomery County. We typically talk about what is an opioid. We talk about recognizing an opioid overdose, so we talk about the signs and symptoms. We talk about responding to that overdose, so we look at using naloxone, the importance of rescue breathing, contacting EMS, and caring for the person after you administer. And then we also give tips for preventing an overdose and some additional resources. All right, so looking at our data, in 2020, we lost 139 lives to overdose deaths, which was 108 of those lives were opioid-related, which was a 25% increase from 2019. And then in 2021, we lost 158 lives to overdose. So the numbers related to Narcan and the lives saved are pretty much duplicative numbers. So they might have been a person that might have been administered Narcan on multiple occasions. All right, so this slide here, I'm not going to go over it because I can get really deep into it, but I really challenge you to take an opportunity to check out a documentary called The Crime of the Century, which gives you a glimpse of how we got into the issue of what we're experiencing today. All right, so looking at what is an opioid, so basically opioids are drugs that treat prescription medications that treat opioid use disorder. They manage pain, suppress coughs, as well as, let me get to it, okay, as well as causing feelings of euphoria, contentment, and detachment. And it's important to know that the effects can last between 3 to 24 hours, and in excessive amounts that can suppress a person's urge or ability to breathe. So basically, opioids are central nervous depressant. They depress a person's ability to breathe. All right, so this here is just some examples of some common opioid medications. So you got oxycodone, which includes Oxycontin, which is the #1 misused and abused prescription medication in the country, as well as hydrocodone, which you might get from a dentist if you have a tooth extraction or your tonsils pulled. And then here you have examples of morphine, which is the base drug that all substances are pretty much created. You have codeine, which is that prescription strength cough medicine that people might use by mixing it with the substance and to mask the flavor. And then you got methadone and buprenorphine, which are both used to treat opioid use disorder. So some tidbits to know about this information is the fact that heroin is about 3 to 50 times stronger than morphine. Fentanyl is about 100 times stronger than morphine. And then you have carfentanil, which is a animal tranquilizer used by veterinarians to treat animals in veterinary situations. So that's about 10,000 times stronger than morphine.
Perdón, just a couple of things in Spanish because parents are turning in. A lot of parents waited to get trained in Spanish. Si usted estaba esperando para el entrenamiento para cómo usar Narcan, por favor no se vaya, quédese con sus audífonos y póngase en el canal donde estaba. El entrenamiento va a ser traducido al español, así que les rogamos por favor que no se vayan y que escuchen el entrenamiento. Si usted entregó sus audífonos, vaya, regrese para que le vuelvan a dar para que usted sea parte del entrenamiento. Thank you. People turn in their headphones and a lot of parents wanted to get trained on this as well. Sorry about that.
This image here just shows a clear depiction of a lethal dose of heroin and a lethal dose of fentanyl. So we typically try to show just how strong fentanyl is. It's very inexpensive, so that's why the drug networks are actually using it to lace other substances, because it's so inexpensive and it increases their profits. But there's also prescription fentanyl, which is used to treat people who might be in end-stage cancers or things like that. So they might wear a transdermal patch or something like that, which is the only way fentanyl can actually soak into the skin. And then you have fentanyl lollipops as well, which sometimes on the street they call those lozenges. All right. Okay. All right, so we also have what the law enforcement officers spoke about earlier, the bright rainbow fentanyl, which can be pressed to look like a pill, powder, but also block, similar to what sidewalk chalk looks like. So it's bright in color, very appealing to young people, and it's very dangerous. And a lot of them don't know how dangerous it is, so we try to educate them on that. This here is just your other illegal opioid, so heroin, which we actually do not see much of it as of late. And then your fentanyl, of course, so it's illicitly produced synthetic form pill to look just like prescription medications, which I'm going to share shortly. Powder form looks similar to heroin, and we know how much stronger it is than the other opioids that are out in the market. So this here is just examples of some pharmaceutical pills that are counterfeit. So I actually blended in the real pill with the fake pill, so it's kind of hard to really tell exactly what you're looking at. So we try to tell young people not to trust their eyes. These are mass-produced by criminal networks, fake and falsely marketed to be legitimate pills, and they make them to look just like the Xanaxes, the Adderalls, the Percocets that are on the market as well. So recognizing the opioid overdose. All right. So basically what happens is an opioid overdose happens when the toxic amount of an opioid overwhelms the body's ability to handle it. So it could be used alone or mixed with other substances like benzos, cocaine, heroin as well. And just like they indicated earlier, some of these substances are adulterated with fentanyl or other opioids, and people don't know that they're already adulterated with those types of substances. What leads to the overdose is respiratory failure, so it's lack of sufficient oxygen in the blood. The vital organs start to fail, like the brain and heart, as well as leads to consciousness, coma, and death. And some signs of the overdose, so there's slow, shallow, or no breathing, unresponsive, unconscious, loud snoring or gurgling noises. Body is very limp, so they're not able to sit up. Lips, fingertips to turn blue or gray. Skin could be pale or clammy, as well as the pulse could be slow or erratic. So responding to the overdose, so basically the life-saving tool to respond to an overdose is naloxone. So it's a medication that's made to restore breathing. It wears off between 30 minutes to 2 hours. So remember earlier I mentioned that an opioid can stay in the body between 3 to 24 hours. So it's important to make sure that you get medical help for that person. Safe for children and pregnant women, so there's no side effects. Delivery mechanisms are intramuscular, intranasal, or intravenous. In Montgomery County, we only train on the intranasal version, so we provide the nasal spray for you. No potential for misuse, so there's no value on it on the black market. No effects on someone who hasn't taken an opioid, so if someone is overdosing on something else other than an opioid, then it's not going to do anything. So if it's just cocaine, it's not going to reverse that overdose at all. And then side effects are minimal or rare, just like I said. And then naloxone is only good for the opioid overdose. So we recommend storing it in its original packaging to ready to use. Avoid exposure to light, so we recommend not leaving it in your car. So if you have like a go bag or a book bag or a purse, you can always store a dose of Narcan in there or something like that. It does have an expiration date, so we try to provide Narcan that lasts about 2 years beyond the training that you receive. So be mindful of that expiration date. But the Department of Defense actually did a study letting us know that Narcan was still effective about 5 years beyond its expiration date. So we recommend that if your kit expires, you can always get a free kit from Montgomery County DHHS, but you can also keep your old kit to have additional doses for just in case. So how does the overdose work? So basically what we have in our brain is opioid receptors. The opioid binds itself to the receptors, impacting the person's ability to breathe. And then basically Okay, there we go. So the naloxone has a stronger affinity to the receptors in the brain, kicking the opioid off the brain and hopefully restoring breathing for a period of time, of course. So how do you respond to that overdose? So first you rouse and stimulate, you call 911, you give naloxone, you provide rescue breathing, and then you care for the person. So you rouse and stimulate, you try to wake them up, are you all right? You call their name. If they don't respond to that, then you do what you call a sternal rub. So it's basically making a fist with your knuckle and rubbing up and down firmly across the breastbone. And if you rub firmly enough, that pain could potentially wake them up. But if that doesn't, you go to the next step of calling 911 just because it's important to get medical help. Remember I said the naloxone is only temporary. The person may have complications. They may need more naloxone. So there's been instances where a person might have needed up to 7 doses of naloxone to be revived. And then maybe a non-opioid overdose. Step 3, you give naloxone. So basically you put on gloves. So in the kits we provide, we give you gloves. We give you a one-way face shield for the rescue breathing piece. And then once you put on your gloves, you peel the tab back and you open the Narcan nasal spray, and then you hold it in your hand with your thumb on the bottom of the plunger and your first and middle finger on either side of the nozzle. And then you tilt the head back, insert and support the person's neck, gently insert the nozzle into the nostril until your fingers on either side of at the bottom of the nose. Then you just press the plunger firmly, and then that is administering 1 dose of Narcan nasal spray to that person. So while you're waiting for that dose to work, because you want to give it about 1 to 3 minutes for that dose to take effect, you're providing rescue breathing. Because one of the key pieces to hopefully sustaining life and giving that person the opportunity to live is getting oxygen into their body. All right, so also in our kits that we provide one-way face shields to hopefully protect you from any bodily fluids and things like that. So if the person is not already laying down on a flat surface, you want to lay them on a flat surface, lift the chin and tilt the head, open the airway, check to see if anything is blocking it, and then pinch the nose shut, make a complete seal over their person's mouth with your mouth, and then you blow 2 regular breaths, then giving 1 breath every 5 seconds. So if you don't see the chest rise, you just want to retilt and then provide another breath. So while you're waiting for that 1 to 3 minutes, right, for that naloxone to take effect and you're providing that rescue breathing, after that 1 to 3 minute window and they haven't woken up and they haven't been able to say anything like that, we provide 2 doses in the Narcan kit. So that after that 1 to 3 minute window, if they haven't woken up, you want to administer that 2nd dose of Narcan nasal spray just to hopefully get that in their system and hopefully help them wake up. Step 5, you care for the person, stay with the person until medical help arrives. If they can sit up, you cannot sit up, you want to put them in a recovery position. Just because Narcan will potentially have them experience withdrawal symptoms. And some of the withdrawal symptoms could include, aspiration or vomiting and things like that. So you want to make sure you put them in that recovery position so they don't choke on their vomit. Keep the person calm, encourage them not to take any more opioids. If the overdose happens again, you just give another dose of naloxone. This image here provides the imagery of the recovery position. It doesn't matter if you lay them on the right side or left side. You just want to make sure that top arm is under the head with the hand under the head and that top knee is bent. That will potentially prevent them from rolling on their back because you want to keep them in a position where they don't choke at all. If you administer, typically we request for you to call poison control, but luckily on all the Narcan kits we provide a QR code. Which actually provides you with all the information you would need to let someone know that you administered. And then you can contact us and say, hey, I administered my Narcan nasal spray. Can I get another kit? And we'll work it out where we could either mail you a kit. Sometimes I say my staff is like DoorDash, so we'll deliver a kit to you if you need to. So we'll just want to make sure that everyone has, the Narcan and other supplies that they need directly. But this also helps to keep funding for programs like this to ensure that if people are in need, we're able to access these different services. And then last, just tips for overdosing. So this basically just gives information about the risk factors associated with it. So like the quantity, the quality, and potency. So in harm reduction services, when we engage with people who are dealing with substance use disorder, we try to educate them about going slow and using less. We try to be compassionate, non-judgmental, and support them until we can get them to a place of pursuing their treatment and recovery. And then a lot of times, abstinence can be a risk factor as well, just because if a person hasn't used and they go back to trying to use the same amount that they used before, their tolerance level is not the same. So they run the risk, and of course, age and physical health is associated with as well. So resources related to this, so everyone's kind of talked about the Good Samaritan law and the importance of it. So the Good Samaritan law protects anyone from arrest or prosecution when they're actively assisting someone with that medical crisis. So I try to tell young people all the time, if your friend is dealing with alcohol poisoning and they passed out, you want to make sure you call 911. In the event someone is overdosing, you want to make sure you call 911, because if you're actively trying to seek medical assistance for them, you're going to be protected under that law. And just like law enforcement said, they're not in the business of trying to arrest you. They're trying to make sure they get you the help you need. Also, like they've indicated earlier, it's a public health issue that we're trying to address. All right, so just some additional information about the Good Samaritan law. How do you get a kit? By completing this training. So everyone that's completed the training today, we do have kits available today to distribute to everyone. You can also get it from a pharmacy. We try to deter you from that just because they're going to ask you for your insurance. And potentially I've heard horror stories where someone might have gotten flagged because they've accessed Narcan, not saying that they access it for themselves, they access it for someone else. So we just say, hey, Montgomery County has it for free, and we're going to continue to give it free as a life-saving tool as well. And then you can also get it from the Opioid Response Program, which DHHS is, as well as we have a Syringe Services Program which supports people with substance use disorder in Rockville as well. Last but not least, I have some local resources here. Access to behavioral health, so someone dealing with a substance needs a mental health or substance use screening, harm reduction services, that's our number there. So anytime someone can call and get Narcan refills, other supports and services and things like that. And then just like LaTanya mentioned earlier about peer support services, so there's a steer team, and that's how to access them through calling the crisis center. And this is what laws and articles that helped us create this training. And I think this might be a record because I'm done. Yeah. Okay, so is my microphone? Is this microphone on? Can you hear? Can you still hear me? I'm good now. Okay. All right. So I was asked to do a demonstration, which I don't often get asked to do a demonstration, but that's fine. We'll do a demonstration. All right. So just like I said, in the event you come across someone who is overdosing, right? You want to shake them. Are you all right? Are you all right? You want to call their name. If they don't respond to their name, then next when you go to the next step of calling 911. Sorry, I don't have my cell phone on me because I've been up here all day. But you call 911, you tell them what you see, tell them what you're experiencing, and a lot of times that person on the other end of the call is going to give you the steps and things to do to help the person that's impacted. After you call 911, you want to make sure that you get your Narcan nasal spray ready. So basically, just like I said, in the kits you got 2. And then you want to, it doesn't matter which nostril you choose. You basically just put it in a nostril, press the plunger firmly, and then that's 1 dose of Narcan nasal spray. You want to allow that Narcan nasal spray to take effect about 1 to 3 minutes. While you're waiting for it to take effect, you're giving that rescue breathing. So you're breathing for the person because it's key to get oxygen in their body to hopefully potentially help them sustain life, right? And so after you're breathing, and then let's say he doesn't wake up, then I go to my 2nd dose, and I'm going to administer that dose as well. And then after I administer that dose, I'm going to continue to do the rescue breathing because I'm pretty sure the person on the other end of the phone is going to say, hey, keep breathing for them to help them as much as possible. After he wakes up, I'm going to try to put him in a recovery position, right? So once he wakes up, I'm going to put him in a recovery position. So just in case I have to go get some other doses of Narcan or some other supports and things like that, I want to make sure that I have everything to my disposal. Now, it could be multiple people around that is assisting in this issue. It could be one person who administers the Narcan. It could be another person that does the rescue breathing. It could be another person that does calls 911. All those people are protected by the Good Samaritan law because they're actively helping in that medical situation. So we're trying to, importantly, lessen the stigma of this issue just to ensure that everyone is comfortable calling 911, making sure they're helping a person. a lot of times there's fear around the dangers of accidental exposure to fentanyl. Well, I shared a video yesterday with the nurses that said you have to be around or have to be in a position to where like you're putting the fentanyl, or if you got fentanyl dust on your shoulder and you rub your hand, if you put it close to your nose, you might experience some symptoms. But it will take a lot. You have to be exposed for an extended period of time. But we want to let people know that it's important to try to help as many people as possible, because you never know what kind of position you're in. And we're trying to train as many people as possible in the county as well. And so thank you. And if you got any questions, I'll be around at the end. Thank you, Mark.
Ben, thank you. That was so impressive how you did that, and I owe you, my friend. I owe you. Now, we're going to have the Good Samaritan law happen right now, because I have 3 people signing you up. You must put your name and zip code. So we're going to be kind and not all run at the table, but I know we all are hungry and we don't want to stand in between you and your food. But I need my 14-year-olds and up. Let's be kind to them and come on, let them up first, and then our adults. Thank you.